I think we are at the top of the hour when we were supposed to come back. Welcome back. I hope the meditation session and the break has re-energized you for the afternoon session. We are still there, and I hope you'll still give us the next few hour or so to continue with the session. And now, without further ado, join me in welcoming our next speaker, Ms. Ansela, the CEO of Special Olympics South Africa. She is going to share with us some of the creative ways the program has used to diversify their revenue streams, and especially within the period of the pandemic. So welcome. Let's brace ourselves for a very practical session, because she'll be sharing with us some of the practical ways they've used. And let's see, let's be ready to learn and hear from. Welcome, Ansela. The mic, I pass it to you now.
Thank you so much, Susan, and happy birthday for today. Hope you're having a good one and that you get to celebrate a bit later on, yeah? Just an absolute huge thank you to Special Olympics Africa region for inviting me to share today, and just hi to all my colleagues from across Africa. Really, really wish we were in person and I could get to see you all, but hopefully next year, as Dr. Dar said, we'll see you all in Cape Town. Well, no, not 2023, maybe 2024. So today, Charles has requested, or the Africa region has requested, that I just share some of our best practices in terms of fundraising. Let me just preface what I'm going to say today to just say that, you know, this is an ongoing thing for us as a program, and it never stops. So it's always on the front burner for us as Special Olympics South Africa, because as you all know, and especially during the course of the last 2 years with COVID, there's a massive amount of donor fatigue out there, and most of the people we're approaching are using COVID and donor fatigue, and just they don't have resources, and a lot of, especially corporates and government, is under pressure to provide relief funding for COVID. So it's been a particularly difficult 2 years, and I foresee that it's going to be a difficult couple of years going forward as economies try and recover. So if we can just go on to the first slide of my presentation. Thanks, Romy. So I'm not sure if all programs are aware of this, but Special Olympics South Africa is one of the few African programs that no longer receives CRG from Special Olympics. And this actually happened in 2020. And obviously we understand that there are numerous new programs in Africa, and resources are limited from Special Olympics International. So some hard decisions have to be made in terms of how those resources are shared amongst the many African programs. And we perfectly understood that as Special Olympics South Africa, we've had a number of years to kind of find our legs and start to source fundraising to support the program, or start to source other funds, in fact, to support the program. However, what that meant for us as a program is that, no, I'm just looking down, there's no, CRG has not been abolished. Before anyone panics, I'm just saying for South Africa, because we've been a long-standing program, and we were starting as a program to develop our own resources. So we've really looked at every possible way we can to diversify our revenue streams, to ensure that we have sustainable, ongoing resources coming into the program. And one of the first things I just want to emphasize here is, and I think Gustavo mentioned this, and you know, both previous speakers have covered this, but it's a long-term program. It's not going to happen overnight, and you really have to be consistent. and follow up again and again and again. So we're going to look at a couple of different revenue streams that we as Special Olympics South Africa identified, but some of these we've been working on for up to 5 years. And so it's, you know, it's important to just understand that people aren't necessarily, it's not going to happen in the first year or the second year. It could take up to 5 years, but that's why networking and establishing relationships are so critical. And you just have to keep working on those relationships and then hope that they bear fruit. I think one of the key things, and I know Gustavo mentioned this in his presentation, saying that Special Olympics is an incredibly well-known organization. I think to a large degree that's true maybe outside or maybe in the States and in kind of regions where it's been around for a lot longer. But certainly one of the biggest challenges we faced in Special Olympics South Africa was the lack of awareness. So very key, and I think that, you know, hand in glove with fundraising goes marketing. You cannot separate fundraising and marketing. And we really focused a lot when I took over as Special Olympics CEO, Special Olympics South Africa CEO, what is it, 6 years now. The main thing that I did was to focus on creating awareness. And I'll go into a little bit more detail about how we went about doing that as a program. But really, 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 awareness is absolutely critical to your fundraising efforts. So I really recommend that, you know, your marketing and fundraising is just never separated, because the two really support each other. So going to our revenue streams. So we identified 6 different revenue streams that we could look at as Special Olympics South Africa. The first was looking at international foundations and grant opportunities. The second was identifying local grant and partnership opportunities. The third we looked at was government. And just one thing I want to emphasize, and I've put it up there, is the importance of VIK from government, but I'll go into detail on that a little bit as well. Then obviously corporates, and then high net worth individuals or influencers, and then lastly, your fundraising and marketing events. We can go next slide. So we really went, and I'm going to happily share this resource after the finish of the conference. But there are a lot of online sites that you can find where they collect all of the grants that are available. There's one called Funds for NGOs. Most countries have their own government websites where you can go and look at what grants are available. I'm going to be completely honest, those are very difficult to get to. There's a lot of work involved. I know that Kenya's done some exceptional work there with getting kind of global funding agencies to support them. We've still got a bit of a way to go there. We haven't really been able to crack that, but we keep trying. So it's really useful to keep looking what grants are available and just keep applying. You get a lot of no's, but you know, you wait for that one yes. So just what we decided to do as a strategy, instead of looking towards kind of global funding, was to look kind of global but in-house, or international but in-house, and we decided to target embassies. Now we all have an opportunity with embassies every time there's a World Games. The first thing I do whenever there's a World Games is I immediately approach the embassy of the country that we're going to be traveling to. We reach out to the ambassador and we set up relationships. We go and we speak to them about Special Olympics. We explain to them what it is we do, and then obviously that we'll be traveling to their country. for a World Games. And this is often an easy way to get your foot through the door of the embassy, especially if you use the invitation letter that you get from the host country. And just as an example there, that is what we did with the United Arab Emirates Embassy just before we went to the World Games in the UAE. And through that interaction, and then obviously with the support of Africa, with some of the activities they did with the ambassador here, we've continued that relationship with the United Arab Emirates, and we invite their ambassador to every single Special Olympics event that we host in the country. That's a big event. Obviously, he's not going to come to little events, but if we do have an event, for instance, like our polar plunge or our Adopt an Athlete campaign, we do reach out to the embassy to the degree where the United Arab Emirates Embassy sponsored some of our athletes as part of our Adopt an Athlete campaign, which I'll talk about later. They hosted the send-off event for our athletes before they left for the UAE. And currently we are in talks with the United Arab Emirates ambassador in South Africa to do an MOU with the Zayed Haya organization for people of determination that's based in the United Arab Emirates. So it's a really good strategy to use on how to use that initial entry point of the World Games to continue to develop that relationship with the embassy. With the Embassy of Japan, each embassy in your country has budget allocated for development work within the country. So again, what we do is we have linked ourselves to all the embassy groups, and we also follow the embassies online and look when grant opportunities come up. And that's what happened with the Japanese embassy, where they have an annual grant for development in South Africa. And we approached them, we did the grant application, and it was a lot of backwards and forwards, but eventually that grant came through, and that grant enabled us, as you can see on the picture, to buy our first mobile clinic in South Africa, and also to purchase all the brand new opening eyes equipment. And we have budget left over currently, which we're hoping they will approve for us to buy new healthy hearing equipment. So really keep an eye out for what you can potentially, as I said, with your embassies, because what we believe is that once you've developed the relationship with the embassy, you have someone to speak on your behalf to international donors. So for instance, with the United Arab Emirates, they are able to speak to the Zayed Haya organization on our behalf. They're brokering the MOU directly. So because of the work we've done with them, we've built up the trust, we've built up the credibility, and that's what's enabling us now to reach out to the UAE for funding. With the Japanese embassy, we just really made sure that we managed that grant very well. And now that grant has come to an end. We're reporting currently on that, and we've been invited to apply for a new grant from them. And then obviously we're all going to Germany next year, hopefully. So what I would recommend is use the opportunity now this year to reach out to the German ambassador in your country. Honestly, use the letter, just keep going at them. It's a great way to get an introduction. It's a great way to go and talk to them about Special Olympics. And it's a great way to see what opportunities there are for funding from them in your country. And I think then that opens the doors to getting more funding from their host or from their countries internationally, because then you have the credibility and you have the ambassadors and the embassy that will vouch for you. So I just think for me, that was an easier access point than trying to just go directly to international funders. I found for us this worked a lot more successfully. Thanks. Next slide. And then obviously the other bucket of money we looked at is money available within our country. So obviously in South Africa, and I know in a lot of countries, I know that Botswana, they're currently in South Africa, their lotteries board, meeting with our lotteries board. So if you do have a lottery board in your country, that's a slam dunk for us. They have to give the money to NGOs, they have to give the money to NPOs. So we approached the National Lotteries Commission, and honestly, it's taken a number of years, but we've gradually built up. We've got smaller grants in the beginning, and we just keep going back every year, and we just really make sure that we over-deliver, that we give them so much awareness on our social media, branding at every one of our events. And as we've developed with them over the last 5 years, every year the grant amount from them gets bigger and bigger. And to the degree that this year they actually asked Special Olympics South Africa to hold the funds for the International Olympic team and the Paralympic team for Tokyo, because they were concerned about some issues within the organization that normally handled the money. So they actually asked us to hold it in trust for the other Olympic organizations. So that just was a real example of how slowly developing the relationship and making sure that you're always transparent and credible and open, and building that trust can actually lead to a point where, you know, the donor actually comes to you and says, we trust you more than we trust somebody else with this money. So that's just an indication of, I mean, and that's been a 6-year relationship that we've been working on, but they really give us a substantial grant now every year for all our programming. And that is, again, with making sure that you maintain the relationships with your donors, keep the conversation open, keep sharing stuff with them. Then again, and this is going back to how we worked a relationship through World Games. We reached out to the Department of Social Development. The Department of Social Development came to Austria with us a couple of years back for Winter Games. They didn't send the minister, they sent some of the low-key people in the Department of Social Development that specifically dealt with disability. Just through our interaction with them in Austria and then following up with them consistently from when they came back from Austria, they let us know that there was a grant available from the South African National AIDS Council, because obviously we explained to them about the work we were doing with grassroots soccer and our behavior change curriculum. So they actually reached out to me to say, hey, there's a grant, we'd like you to apply, because they were giving the money to the South African National AIDS Council. So we got that grant, which carried our AIDS work for 3 years through the National AIDS Council. And through that, I've been appointed to the AIDS Council for South Africa. And that's opened a whole nother network of support for us. And the South African National AIDS Council itself was so impressed with our work that they are now providing us grants from other donors. So again, no relationship is wasted, and it's really important to use opportunities like World Games to get your foot through the door, and always, always, always keep maintaining those relationships. Then another relationship that we got involved with was the Sports for Social Change Network. I know Kenya is also part of them. I'm not sure which other African countries they are. I'm very happy to conduct introductions for you to join the Sports for Social Change Network, but I think Susan can do that as well. So they're just a network of sports that are involved in social change, but they've started creating some amazing opportunities for us with Special Olympics South Africa. Through them, we were asked to partner on an event with Brand South Africa, which is the official branding company for South Africa. Through that partnership and the work we did on that event and on the relationship and through other networks, we have now become an official ambassador for Brand South Africa as Special Olympics South Africa. And so now we also receive grants from them to use their name at our events and to promote Brand South Africa through our work. We also got introduced to the National Youth Development Agency through our relationship with the Sports for Social Change network. And through that, we are now partnering with the National Youth Development Agency on joint ventures for youth development, and they're really interested in partnering with us on anything that we do. Again, this is not necessarily funding that comes through, but when we partner, they will bring their resources and we will bring our resources. So it's not always grant, but it's always budget relieving. And I think that's something that we really, really need to focus on as well, and not just always think about the money. Then as well, we were looking for opportunities for our athletes to get a further education. So we did a pilot program as Special Olympics South Africa. We used our own funds to put 3 of our athletes through a technical qualification in South Africa where they weren't required to read or write. We found a specific qualification that they could do. They all passed, and we were able to take that to CAFCITA, which is one of the bodies that approves qualifications or national qualifications in South Africa. They were so impressed by that work that they gave us bursaries for 36 of our athletes who are currently studying for a national qualification, again, where they don't need to read or write, but they will receive a national qualification based on practicals and a body of evidence. So that was huge because that covers all their studies, their attendance, everything during that course. And we are now working with CAFCITA and some of the companies they work with to place those athletes. So again, not a grant for us necessarily, although there is admin funds in there, included in there for us to manage the whole process, but definitely funds that bring in relief for our athletes. But through that work, we are now reaching other potential donors who've been so impressed. And this has given us an entry point with the Department of Basic Education. Then another key area for us is federations. I cannot stress enough how partnering with federations can be budget relieving. Oftentimes, they will be doing events where they will include our athletes. Partnering with them, you get introduced to their network, to their sponsors. You meet so many people at their events that can help your own organization grow. So really, really, currently we have relationships with 10-pin bowling, Athletics South Africa, Netball South Africa, Cricket South Africa, the PGA. We've just developed a partnership with Equestrian South Africa. It also gives you credibility when you're going to donors asking for money for golf. For instance, if we're having a golf tournament and we have a letter of endorsement from the Professional Golf Association, that trust, that credibility comes immediately. Those donors are so much more excited about working with you. So don't ever underestimate the power of partnering with your federations in your countries. Okay, next slide. Government. Okay, so government for us has been a very tough nut to crack, I think specifically in South Africa, because we have so many NGOs, we have so many things happening in this country. We really struggle to get to the ministerial level. And when we do, 2 years later, that changes and there's a new one. So eventually we gave up with that strategy completely, and we focused on local government. So we have made huge inroads in terms of, then there's four government sectors we focus on in terms of local government, and we work with like government departments in the provinces as opposed to the national office. So we work with the Department of Social Development, we work with the Department of Health, the Department of Sport, and the Department of Education. It might differ in your country, but in ours, disability falls under social development. And just through those relationships and those partnerships, so I've already mentioned social development, gave us the South African National AIDS Council. We're also busy speaking to them now about early childhood development funding, because even though they focus on disability, ECD also falls under them. And then out-of-school learners also fall under them. So we are working on multiple entry points and different people within the department to assist us. And as I said, again, you don't have to go to the ministerial level. Often the best person to speak to is the head of department, the HOD. They control the budgets, not the ministers, not the MECs, the HODs. So when you get the HODs on your side, that's where the budget sits. So the others are political appointees and they come and go, but your head of department doesn't. So if I can give you a piece of advice, that's where you need to focus your energies. So again, with the Department of Health, guys, VIK from government is so important. You're not always going to get money from them, but you will get resources and you will get ways of taking some of the financial burden off yourself. I'll speak a little bit later about an event we did with the Department of Sport in Limpopo last year. But with the Department of Health, they give us health workers for our health work. They give us accreditation. So for instance, if health workers come to a Special Olympics event, they get personal development points, which they have to get every single year. So they accredit that for us. They give us equipment if we need it. They give us access to hospitals, to clinics. So really important to look at not just getting money, but what other resources, what VIK you get. It really helps us a lot, other than just going for cash all the time with government, because oftentimes their budgets are stretched as well. But if you're looking for resources, they're more than willing to support and assist. Then the Department of Sport, we did a Disability Day event with them. I'll chat more on the next slide. The Department of Education, our life skills curriculum, which is our AIDS work and our behavior change curriculum, they are currently reviewing our curriculum. And once they've reviewed that curriculum, it will be written into the schools, our special schools, life orientation curriculum. So they will actually implement it on our behalf. And the idea is that they will give us the funding to train the teachers, our coaches, in every single special needs school to enable them to implement the behavior change curriculum. What that also gives us is it gives us a property that many donors are very interested in getting their hands on, because it shows their commitment to education and learners. So again, we've taken this product that we started with grassroots soccer, then we took it to social development, then to the National AIDS Council, and now we're getting that vetted by the Department of Basic Education. And then it will go into every special needs school in the country. So again, not necessarily about the cash, but about the resources. The grant will come in for us to be able to train, but it's a benefit to every single learner or athlete that's in school in our country. Then going back to the National Youth Development Agency, so again, working with the Sports for Social Change Network, we've just put in a grant, and I'm very happy, Charles, we haven't announced this formally yet, but we are looking that we will receive an internship grant for 4,000 athletes. It's a 6-month paid internship for us to train them in the SOFIT curriculum and implement that in special needs schools across the country. That's also been driven by the National Youth Development Agency. So again, more than one touch point, and just different ways of getting funding into Special Olympics to do the work we're already doing. A really important thing to remember with government is that government, we are doing their work. And oftentimes you are bringing more to the table than you realize, because government uses us a lot to tick their boxes, especially in the disability sphere, because they don't have the experience, they don't have the capability, they don't have the footprint, but we do. So when they can partner with us in whatever way, they're actually benefiting, because when they're reporting back, they can show a massive footprint in the disability space, which they don't currently have. So don't forget the value that you bring when you're discussing, or when you're coming into government. Always be aware of the value that you bring to them, because they are mandated to work in the disability space. So in government, always look for the person that's responsible for disability and make that your first point of contact, because there'll be someone in health, there'll be someone in sport, there's someone in social development, and there's someone in education that is tasked with overseeing the disability sector. And they've all focused on physical disability. So none of them have a footprint with intellectual disability. So they will be so excited when you bring that to the table for them. You are doing their work. So it's one hand washing the other. Okay, just to the next slide. I just quickly wanted to talk about this partnership. So as you can see here, we had a massive event in Limpopo last year, a unified celebrity football event, and we partnered with the Department of Sport. And we brought all our ambassadors and celebrities to the table. They got hugely excited, to the degree where the Premier got involved, the MEC of Sport, the MEC of Social Development. And all that we really brought to the table was we bussed our celebrities up. We had them there overnight, we fed them, but we partnered with the Department of Sport because they had to do an event around Disability Day. And they hadn't conceptualized something, so we brought this whole offering to the table. There wasn't a lot of spend from our side. Fortunately, we had another grant to cover it, but the impact that it made in Limpopo was so huge that the MEC of Sport is committed to hosting our nationals there for the next 5 years. And then also the Department of Sports, Health, Social Development and Education now want to sign an MOU with Special Olympics South Africa to implement our programming across the province. So we are currently in the process of finalizing that MOU with the Department of Sport, and they're actually bringing health, education and social development to the table. So again, not a big spend on our side, but a massive impact in terms of creating awareness about Special Olympics. I mean, it really helped that we had Lucas Radebe there, we had Mark Fish, we had Doc Kumalo, but just the fact that we could bring those people to Limpopo just blew them away. So ambassadors are critical, and I'll talk a little bit about ambassadors. I'm not sure, Susan, on my time, so if you just give me a quick heads up. Next slide.
Yeah. Ansel, I think we are running over time. Probably you could run through the remaining slides kindly.
Okay, absolutely no problem. I'm going to quickly just talk to the main thing here is going back to awareness. Just quickly, a point that I wanted to make about ambassadors is there was a strategy that I adopted 6 years ago. Unfortunately, Melanie isn't on the call, but you don't have to know the celebrities. Find somebody who does know them. That was my strategy. That's what I did. I found a publicist who was doing work for most of the celebrities in South Africa. I approached her. I was very fortunate that she came on board and became eventually a board member of Special Olympics South Africa. And through her and networking, we've been able to bring on over 30 ambassadors and then more than 200 celebrity supporters that join us every year for the Polar Plunge. But the reason we did that was to rebrand Special Olympics, because in terms of donors, they want return on investment and awareness and what they're going to get out of being involved with your organization. So those donors help you to create that awareness. They help you to get into the media. They work on their social media. You cannot pay for that publicity. And that is really one of the things that attracts corporates to your programming. So if I could recommend, sorry I didn't get through everything. I didn't realize, I thought I'd timed this perfectly. But again, if any program needs support, advice, happy to work with you guys on just what approaching ambassadors could look like, and happy to share any of the techniques, presentations, whatever that we've used as Special Olympics South Africa that could potentially help you reach either government or donors. So thank you all.
Angela.
Susan? Yes.
Angela, thank you. We don't have any questions in the Q&A, and I was just thinking maybe you could spend a minute to just to say something a little bit more about the Polar Plunge, because I think that's a good one.
Oh, okay. Yeah, all right. Yeah. So I think if we move on to the next slide, and then, okay, keep going, Romy. And another one. And one more. Okay, so there is a quick video here. If you want to go back, Romy, and just let everyone see what the Polar Plunge looks like.
It's really a good cause. More than anything, man, it's not even really what it means to me. It's more about what it means to the people that are, we're helping through this, and also, just to spread the message and encourage other people with influence to come out here.
Look, you're doing it for a great cause, man. What does it mean for you to come here and support our athletes?
I think, the one thing that, South Africa is big on and that is sport. And, that definitely brings our nation together with music and everything else. But definitely sport is probably the #1 driver, and to support, these athletes, because I think they're just of a higher caliber, you know what I mean? Yes. And, they go against all odds that, some of us, face on a daily basis, and they have to go extra, just to be a little bit ahead of us. And, I just think, we've got to appreciate them for what they're doing. And not only that, they're also like gold medalists, you know what I mean?
You support all the time. You were here in the plunge last year. What's the reason for you to do that?
I think it's always just great to lend a helping hand where you can. I mean, the Special Olympians have to go through so much, you know, already on a daily basis. So if we can help them out in any way, whether it's big or small, I think it's really, really important that we do that. And also it's like a great way for us to all get connected, because they're not just Olympians, they're people, you know. So we get to hang out with them, we get to meet them, and we get to hear some of their stories. And it's really just a great day.
Okay, I think, Ron, if you want to cut it there.
What's going
So just a quick thing on the polar plunge. Guys, I have to be completely honest, this is not a fundraiser for Special Olympics South Africa. It's an awareness piece. We don't make money out of the plunge per se, but the awareness that it creates for us is massive. And we have grown this for about 5 years now. We started with 10 celebrities participating the first year. Last year, we had just over 250 celebrities come and take the plunge. Obviously, they're celebrities. They're not going to give us money. That's not the point. The media value that we get out of this, they post this on their social media. We looked last year, the total media value from commercial media, from mainstream media, was just over 3 million rand. The influencer value of those guys posting from the event was over 5 million that we generated in media coverage. Now what's happened are that sponsors, corporates are all over this. Now they all want a piece of it. And now finally, it's reached a point where we can go to corporates and say, okay, fine, this is how much it's going to cost you to put your branding at this event. But it is a growth process. But the reason we did this wasn't necessarily as a fundraiser. It was, and I'm going to say, but to make Special Olympics South Africa sexy. Because that's what corporates want to be associated with. That's what governments want to be associated with. You know, that's where we're giving bang for the buck. Is there's no other organization in this country that gets 250 celebrities to come out for free and plunge into cold water. And that's what's made this become such an incredible property that we're now finally in a position to broker and make money off of. But the coverage that this gives us just brings in so much more than just this one event. So yeah, again, I'm happy to work with any country that wants to look at doing one this year. We're really happy to look at how we can support and get your own polar plunge going.
Thank you, Ansela. Listening to you is not only inspiring, but I think it's energizing, because you're sharing with us very practical things that you've done in your program. We currently don't have a question. However, you've seen the way the chat is lit. Everybody is really, really amazed through the work you've done. And I'm glad you've opened up your doors for any of the program leaders who want to get in touch with you, just to support and enhance their fundraising. So thank you very much. We sincerely appreciate. And I would really challenge the national directors to take that offer, to reach out to you.
Thank you very much. Ansela, before you go really quickly, and first let me, on behalf of the region, thank you. But a few quick points I want to mention. I know that there's quite a number of programs, especially the new programs. We're asking about CRG, that's the Christmas Record Grant,
yes,
which we received from our trustees. But I just want to say that we will explain this offline and in future, because they receive sustainability grant, but in future they may receive CRG. So I'm going to explain this to the trustees. So please stand by new programs. Please look out for that communication that will come from us. And
apologies.
Also, that's all right. Those programs every program that receives grants, whether it's sustainability or CRG, what you have to do, you can ask Councillor the day we announced that they're no longer receiving, this funding from Special Olympics. The first point was that, Charles, how are we going to survive? But look at the example they are today. So what I would like to appeal to all programs is that let's stand in a position where we're saying we're not receiving CRG right now and start from that point, rather than be at a point where CRG will not be there or any grants such as these will not be there, and then we'll have a challenge. The second thing, really quickly, I'm going to go through this very, very quickly. I know we're out of time. You mentioned something very important, Angela. As we are approaching the World Games, you are expected to mount national games. Dr. Dow always said this: invite your ministers, invite the embassy, the German embassy staff, bring them to the national games. Let them, when they see our product, they get hooked. Don't tell them, don't write a letter, bring them to the games. That's really important. And then something else I just wanted to mention, Ansela mentioned the budget relief, which is in-kind support. Most of Africa, that's a low-lying fruit that we can all grab. Don't always go for money. Let's look at that in kind, because it will be most of the time available. And also, I just want to make this very clear right now that we have staff members in the region. Youth and education, I mentioned earlier, is a really, really good connection to government connections. And health, we have Ngawa Mumba, who's our staff member. If you want to learn more on this connection, talk to Ngawa. If you want to learn more about health, talk to Maria. We send a monthly contact information. You will see which staff members lead which initiatives in the region. And finally, I want to mention this. It is really hard work. If you listen to what Angela just mentioned, it's hard work, but it pays off in the end. So I encourage you. I've personally gone to South Africa many times. I've participated in the polar plunge before, not the previous one. I've seen how hard they work, and that's why they're getting what they're getting today. And then lastly, get all your programs to, you are the experts, not us at the region. Look at what Nigeria too, Kenya, Senegal, many of the programs are doing very well. Let's have this program to program network. Angela has just extended this invitation to contact me, and she'll be happy to stay for an hour on a call with you and walk you through this fundraising process they've gone through. So thank you very much, Angela. We really appreciate what you've done today, and keep up the good job.